This was a good week of chapters with everything being out this week, and so there's a lot to go over. I also ended up catching up to Tokyo Demon Bride, and I think the series as a whole is pretty entertaining thus far, and it's an interesting story to see in modern day Shonen Jump, I guess, as it's seemingly a harem story. But there'll be more on that later. So we'll be starting off with One Piece, chapter 1065, and this was a good chapter showing more of Vegapunk and their various personalities, as we basically get to see all of them by this point, from Lilith being evil, Edison being the inventor of them, Pythagoras being kind of similar to Edison in terms of being more brainy than the others. We got to see the one a couple weeks ago that's violent. York is greedy in seemingly all of their bodies, quote unquote, as whenever she eats something, they all seemingly do, and then when she does everything else, sleeps, eats, goes to the bathroom, it seemingly does it for all of them. So that's York's job, which was interesting. And then we get to see the good Shaka, I think it was. We get to see him, and he explains some of the goings on and the fact that he cannot trust pirates, especially given the fact that they were just attacked by a seraphim. The seraphim was Jinbei, and we see that Lilith led them to a trap with the seraphim as the clone Jinbei attacks, as Frankie is seemingly on top of a lot of what the seraphim can do, which I thought was pretty interesting, from the fact he correctly called it a pacifista to then seeing Senior Pink's devil fruit ability being used and seemingly is able to stop it with one of his own radical beams. So the fight itself was pretty interesting, especially seeing as how no one was really willing to fight it until the seraphim attacked Nami, where then both Robin and Sanji got very irritated by it, and Frankie's willing to fight anything. So they get the upper hand before Shaka immobilizes their boots so they can't move, and then explains that the island they're on is actually built from the past because there was an ancient civilization about 900 years ago that was this advanced, and Egghead is simply built on their foundations. We then see Luffy and co. find this seeming robot graveyard filled with all sorts of machines and different high-level technology that is ancient looking and rusted over, as it's been sitting dormant, decaying for 900 years. So we have now gotten our first hint of the Void Century. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing more of Vegapunk and their various personalities, and seeing just how powerful a Seraphim is, that while strong, they can be taken down just like a pacifista, though they are seemingly a massive upgrade to a pacifista, as they have been implanted with different devil fruits and are seemingly learning from their predecessor their original bodies, as one of the Vegapunks had stated that his fighting patterns, the Seraphim Jinbei, was starting to take habits from Jinbei himself, meaning that through experience they might end up more or less copying their original's combat abilities, which was fascinating to the Vegapunk. So there's a lot of intrigue going into these next few chapters, as we might learn more, or we might not learn anything, who the hell knows, but it was interesting to see more of the different Vegapunks and the power of the Seraphim, as well as some degree of upgrade for the rest of the Straw Hats, as they were able to take down the Seraphim relatively easily. Now again, perhaps in a different circumstance it would be a little harder. Even still, we were able to see that the other crews were able to kind of fight against the Seraphim, but they were also seemingly more finished than we had previously thought. Maybe. I'm sort of rambling at this point. But the other Seraphims were strong, that a lot of nobodies couldn't take them on, just similar to the pacifistas. But named characters and important characters didn't seem to struggle too much with them, outside of the fact that they're highly destructive. So it'll be interesting to see how much more powerful they are as the story goes on, especially if they grow into their full adult counterparts. So having just more warlords that are just machines under their belt is a dangerous prospect. The other big thing is the fact we got to learn more about the Void Century, even just a small nugget of information, but it is more info, seeing as how this ancient civilization that seemingly fought the world government was extremely advanced, leading to a trope that I find irritating, but I think is pretty okay in this context, in this story, because I usually loathe when the past was more powerful / technologically advanced than the modern era of whatever the story does. That tends to irk me as like a personal taste thing, but I think this one's okay given the fact that it wasn't the whole world was uber advanced, it was just this one kingdom was, and as we're seeing, a lot of the powerful people in modern day are starting to very much stack up to the old, so it's fairly balanced. I think we're hitting an apex of pirate power as well as marine, so it'll be interesting to see how much all of this balances out and how much stronger everyone gets by the end of the story. But for now, this arc has more intrigue than the last few in terms of what information we'll learn about the end game of One Piece. So now we're on to Black Clover, chapter 343, and this was a good chapter showing the battle between Yami's sister and Asta as they go back and forth a little bit, seeing as how Asta is a bit more desperate but is still nowhere near close enough in power to fight Yami's sister. It seems as though their magic / anti-magic is about on par with one another. However, her Zeton is vastly more powerful than Asta's attempts at doing it. He seemingly is starting to understand it better and better and was hoping to have grasped it by the final exchange. However, thanks to the Shogun intervening and stopping the clash before they could, Asta more or less reveals that he did not get his Zeton off and most likely would have received another grievous wound from Yami's sister, as Yami's sister was more and more enraged by what was going on, and Asta could feel it through his sensing of ki. So the exchange was interesting and the battle was well done. They both fought to and fro, and it seemed pretty close for the most part, though Asta couldn't land any offense but was able to defend fairly well outside of a few exchanges, showing that their power level is close but not close enough. She even mocks him for wanting to be his version of the Shogun in the Clover Kingdom, believing that he has no chance of getting there, seeming very pissed at Asta. With the Shogun's arrival, stopping the fight and intervening in the two of theirs affair, just as it seems as though he's trying to cool the situation down, he then senses the fact that the paladins have arrived. We see then Sister Lily and two others have arrived on the land of the sun and are seemingly planning to attack to make sure nothing interferes or spread Lucius's message, I guess, or power in another way. So it'll be interesting to see how that exchange goes through, as it looks like a major battle is afoot, to see just how powerful the Land of the Sun's warriors are compared to probably the most strongest enemies we've seen thus far in the series. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing this battle between Asta and Yami's sister, seeing just how powerful Yami's sister is, as Asta is still trying very hard to close the gap between him and the elite of the world. The ending, especially seeing the paladins have arrived in this foreign land, is exciting to say the least. The fact that we'll be seeing some major battles coming faster than I had anticipated is fairly fun, and hopefully Asta is able to succeed, perhaps saving Sister Lily in the process before anything happens, finally mastering Zeton and elevating himself one step further than he had thought possible. So it'll be interesting to see how the next few chapters go, especially given the fact that everything in the story so far is building towards the inevitable conclusion. So it'll be interesting to see if Asta is able to succeed and save them, or if the paladins are beyond saving. So a lot of different decisions and a lot of unique choices to come. Now we're on to Mission Yozakura Family, chapter 153, and this was a good chapter showing the continued battle between Futaba and Shion and Nanao, having it that Nanao uses his released powers, his blossoming, to kind of go toe-to-toe with Futaba for a while, as we learn that Nanao's blossoming is that he releases a lot of his mutation, it seems, and he can cover the whole room, releasing large amounts of toxic clouds and poisons and so on, while Futaba's blossoming power is that she can neutralize just about anything. So the battle is basically a battle of attrition to see how long Nanao can last against Futaba and how long Futaba can last against Nanao. So they go back and forth in this battle of neutralizing each other's kind of attacks, and Nanao seemingly starts to get more fatigued. Futaba, while still very much cocky in this moment, tells him to more or less take it easy so he doesn't burn out, when Nanao gets the upper hand for all but a moment, changing his form into some liquid form to wrap her up, only for Futaba to use one of her many throws to slam him onto the ground and seemingly stop him in his tracks. This battle of wills was all a stalling tactic for Shion to find some sort of way to stop Futaba using her blossoming, which is that she can basically overheat her brain to a degree and find some sort of solution. She uses her brain to think of a correct way to win this fight, I guess. Something like that. And so their next chapter should be their fight and see if Futaba can neutralize her, I guess, and her strategies. While all of that happens, we see Momo is watching the battle on a screen with the seeming blossom of his wife and is conflicted by the fact that his children are fighting each other. He seemingly starts to crack the cage before then nearly ripping his own hand off and stopping him from any further damage to the glass jar his wife's heart is in. And the psychological breakdown of Momo is interesting because he seemingly is fighting himself on what to do. One part of him seemingly believes this is enough and to stop fighting his family, wanting to see them stop fighting each other and stop the whole thing, where then another part of him knows this is the best thing for them, I guess, and wants to continue with their plan. So I wonder what is the real Momo and what is the original Yozakura family founder, because that's what I'm assuming is happening here. You have the original Momo, the real Momo, the one that married the head of the family, their mother, the one that loves them all, the whole thing, and then the founder Momo, the one who's a piece of the original founder, who also loves his children and his family, but is a little bit more twisted, not quite right, because he's more or less just a piece of the founder, who had lost her mind centuries ago. So it'll be interesting to see who prevails and how they end up getting the good Momo out to more or less say goodbye to everyone, because that's pretty much what's going to happen if I had to guess, in the final battle. So for now, we got to see the big battle with the siblings, and now we get one more with Futaba before probably everything falls apart. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing Nanao hold his ground against Futaba, and to see that even with his failure to do so, it was actually a success to allow Shion to access the amount of time she needed to find a perfect strategy to take down Futaba. Will it work? That's up for next week to show us, but if I had to guess, it probably won't, and Nanao will have to try to find one more desperate attempt to win, and somehow he or Shion is corrupted, just like what's going to happen with Kengo, as everyone will have to leave once again, as Momo now secures yet another pair of siblings. That's my guess, anyway. But for now, we've seen some good fighting between the siblings and different methods of fighting between the siblings. So it'll be interesting to see which branch of these succeeds and which one fails, as it seems as though the oldest brother is going after Momo proper, though I doubt he ends up fighting him to and fro quite yet, simply because I imagine things are going to go south before he can find him. So now we're on to Undead Unluck, chapter 134, and this was a great chapter showing Fuko finding Nico and asking him for help. We see that she explains everything that has happened, the loop, the negators, the umas, the god, and the whole thing, and Nico does not want to believe it at first, but ultimately can't deny what was placed in front of him, and so does agree to help Fuko. We then get a back and forth as Nico Nico wants to understand what tragedy befell him, but Fuko would not reveal it so that he could not try to prevent it. So he's now having to trust Fuko to save him from his own tragedy that happens much later in time, while still helping her currently with everyone else's problems. He still agrees, seeing the earnestness in Fuko's being as she breaks down thinking about what happens to Nico and probably everyone else, and then we get to see what their plan is, which it is finding Gina, who is in the Soviet Union, and stopping her from unlocking her ability and accidentally killing 40,000 people. Nico's surprised by that number, but Fuko by that point seemingly knows everything, so is unfazed. She then pulls out some blueprints on a machine that is able to help Gina control her ability to centralize it so that she doesn't accidentally release it in her area, killing everyone by accident. So that's why she needed Nico now, many years before he unlocks his abilities. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter an A. It was pretty great seeing more of Fuko's journey, as well as just seeing how resourceful she is, convincing Nico to help even though she could not give up much, seeing as how he would do the worst possible thing, which is distance himself from his wife simply because he knew a bad ending would happen. It is also interesting in the fact that Futaba seemingly knows quite a bit more than we know at this point as one of the artifacts, maybe the round table itself, maybe I don't even know what, a whole different host of different things are possible here, but something allows her to see basically a lot more clarity into the future, and she kind of knows a lot more about what happens through time, seeing as how she makes mention in her head that the Nico in the previous loop was at the highest point of scientific prowess that he had ever been in any other loop, meaning that his abilities were at its highest because of his wife. That is an interesting thing we did not know, that she seemingly has the statistics from the other loops that she never would have known because she wasn't there, but she now does, and she now knows how to optimize just about everyone. We also see that Nico asks if they can avoid the negator outbreaks just like she was able to avoid it for Anno, the author, and she explains no, that God was able to put the super pen with the negator power that makes everyone forget about him in it just to stop it as a kind of troll thing, but because Fuko stopped it and grabbed it before he could, the negator power basically will not exist. Everyone else's power is still going to happen no matter what, so they have to find a way to stop it from destroying just about everything. That makes everything tragic for everyone else. So it'll be very interesting to see how they succeed or fail in these endeavors. It doesn't look like anything's trying to stop them outside of the fact they just have to make it in time to save everyone. It'll be interesting if something does come along and ruin everything, but I kind of doubt it for now because I don't think Luna would appreciate the sun doing that given how close everything is, and she kind of wants to watch the fireworks. So it'll be interesting how this all works out for Fuko if she's able to succeed and stop everyone's tragedy in order to rescue the entirety of the world from the two gods from meddling in it. So now we're on to Mashle, Magic and Muscles, chapter 131, and this was a good chapter showing off Ryo's power and showing the fight with Doom is a little bit more balanced than we would have initially thought, as it seems as though Ryo's power continues to grow as the adversity against him grows. So as he first starts to fight Doom, Doom can deflect his attacks and starts more or less winning, but Ryo's power starts to amp up and Ryo starts winning, blasting him back and hurting him even, to the point that everyone was shocked, even Innocent Zero, who is watching this battle. And just as Doom seems to be getting the upper hand, Ryo regains it just as quickly, to the point that Doom is able to unlock 70% of his power, and even that isn't enough to even phase or stop Ryo from growing stronger. And so the battle is seemingly in Ryo's favor, which I think is probably the most interesting thing that has happened here. The fact that Ryo is very much the strongest of the visionaries, which I really would not have expected given how everything was looking for a while. So the fact that Ryo is that powerful is rather entertaining, and the fact that he's holding his own against Doom is rather shocking. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing this battle happen and seeing that it goes back and forth quite a bit. If anything, Ryo is actually a little bit more in advantage for longer, as he takes it to Doom from the get-go, and Doom really can't respond for quite a while, which I think is pretty interesting. So I wonder how the next bit of this fight is going to go. What will happen when Doom goes to 100%? Will Ryo continue to grow exponentially stronger that he might even give Innocent Zero something to worry about? Or is it that once he beats Doom, all of them are too injured to go on, and we'll hopefully have to wait for MASH and hope that he is ready in time, or they're all dead because Innocent Zero is too powerful. But for now, the fight itself was pretty fun to actually see someone go toe-to-toe with Doom, and for someone to show some real power. So now we're on to Sakamoto Days, chapter 94, and this was a good chapter showing that the invisible guy was acting brainwashed the whole time to take advantage of the hypnotist. He needed Shin's ability to read someone's mind to rip the information about where the invisible guy's brother is out of the hypnotist, and so he, of course, compromised the janitor and everyone simply because he needed the information, and so he attacks the hypnotist and goes after the janitor, and things are not looking great until the invisible guy attacks Shin, seemingly has Shin left for dead, when out of nowhere he asks the hypnotist where his brother's being held, showing that he's resisting the hypnosis. The hypnotist thinks it's cute, but believes that he has genuinely hypnotized the invisible guy and says no one can break out no matter what as long as they've been hypnotized once, and so tries to completely control him when Shin and the invisible guy attack the hypnotist, dealing a significant blow against him. It is then revealed that the invisible guy was faking his hypnosis to get what he needed, and we find out where the invisible guy's brother is being held, so they have at least that next part of the plan. He explains that hypnotism is a joke and an act, and the janitor hits him over the head, like scolding him for giving away his position, compromising his life, more or less, and the grandson's not thrilled either when the hypnotist claps his hands and the grandson starts attacking everyone. The hypnotist gets up, saying once again that once someone is under his spell, they cannot break free, and so he then has the grandson see his father in the three of his allies, so now he'll attack with full-blooded earnest, and they'll have to find some way, somehow, to snap him out of it. And just as I had said before, it'll end up being the grandson who accidentally kills his grandfather, the janitor, because he was hypnotized and did not know better. So he'll be traumatized most likely, unless someone comes in and saves the day, namely Sakamoto. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing the fact that the invisible guy did not betray everyone, and the fact that the battle was going well, even looked like the good guys might win with the hypnotist taking a serious wound, but things have now turned from bad to worse, as the hypnotist is now having the grandson, who is seemingly very talented, now attack everyone with full bloodlust in his eyes, forcing him to see his greatest enemy. So it'll be interesting to see how this fight ends up, as there's a lot of back and forth that could happen, and a lot of misfortune that may follow as well, given that this could turn from a triumph to a tragedy very quickly, unless Sakamoto comes in for the save, and I don't know how they would clear the hypnosis from him, for he could be forever compromised because of the hypnotist, unless they kill him right here and right now. So that should be interesting to see what happens there, as the next few chapters should depict this battle. So that was all of the chapters. They were all very good, with varying degrees of new news going on, with One Piece showing us the fact that the past was the future and its foundations have laid way to Egghead and Vegapunk ad nauseum. Black Clover had its battle conclude and a new enemy on the horizon, the immediate horizon. Mashle had its battle seemingly conclude with the next act starting up. Undead Unluck had the next stage of the plan to save everyone begin. Mashle had its battle enter its next stage with Rio taking on Doom and winning. And Sakamoto Days had its battle reach a evil twist that could end up turning the victory to tragedy. So now we're on to everything else. My Hero was fine, Jujutsu Kaisen was fine, and Blue Box was fine. The Elusive Samurai was good, with the new battle that is being waged now being on an open field, so the carnage is going to be quite a bit more, as we see more of the villain characters being even more eccentric than before, and some secrets might be revealed about some of our characters. So an interesting chapter, a fun chapter to say the least. It should be fun to see how this battle ends up going in the favor of the good guys, if it does. P times 6 was good, as we get to see more of the superstar siblings' kind of villainous origin. Because his mother left and did not choose him, he decided to choose himself and love himself in the whole thing, showing that he is more or less a selfish guy, which is fine. He is within his own right, and he seemingly is going to stay. Consequences and his choice be damned, that is what he's going to do. So it'll be interesting to see how this affects Lucky in the end, this decision by his other sibling to not be there when his mother is probably dying. I wonder what will happen next. Ginka and Luna was good, as the story continues to build, as our villain character for these last few chapters is still showing just how strong he is, up until the fact we see that the real Ginka arrives and the villain character is now very much attached to the bigger Ginka, leading to many questions that hopefully will be answered next week. And finally, as I said in the beginning of the video, I had caught up to Tokyo Demon Bride, and this chapter was a fun chapter, meeting another girl to seemingly join the harem that is growing around the main character, as he is just trying to live his normal life, and all of these other demons and spirits just continue to arrive and seemingly annoy him, which is a rather entertaining thing to see, as now we have one more fight to see with this new character and the female main character. A fun story as a whole, and hopefully it'll go quite a while. It seems as though it's doing well, so we'll see how long it lasts, but for now it is at least fairly entertaining. So that was all of the chapters. It was a pretty good week overall. I think there are a couple of chapters that are on break next week, but I did not look and see which ones are off and which ones are not. So we'll have to see next week which is here and which is not. But this week overall was pretty good. It was a pretty great week, and I think a lot of these stories are really hitting their stride. So it'll be fun to see how much further they all can go. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and as always, thank you for watching.